What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Drop Room. This is episode 6, and as you can tell by the title, I'm all alone. All I have is me and my good old producer, Griffin, but it is just me this week. Darth Mike couldn't join me this week because I don't think he's stuck in Oklahoma anymore, but he was at Tokyo and Tulsa too to cast an event, and many rain delays and weather things like that kept him from being on the show this week. But the show must go on, as they say. So here I am. I am back again for another week of some Counter-Strike action. So let's just break down the topics. I know this show is it's a little bit later than when we usually do it at about 6 EST. Now we're doing it at 9 EST. So it's a little bit later. So we're going to run over the topics real quick just to make sure that we got it all straight. So first, I'm going to start off with MDL, my bread and butter, the thing that I pay attention to every single week. It's the thing that I love the most. It's the thing for why I got this show in the first place. So thank you to Nerd Street. Thank you. The next thing we're going to talk about is Tokyo and Tulsa 2, the event that has earned Darth Mike some money, but also kept him from being on the show this week. So unfortunately, that is why he's not here. But we will talk about the event nonetheless. Then we have DreamHack Valencia that just happened with North taking the championship there. I'll be talking about the minor, and not just the NA minor. I'll talk about the many other minors, and currently I believe it's the Asia minor that's going on right now. So I'll run over that a little bit, and there is a little bit of a surprise from that event already, just from Group A. And then we'll talk about the upcoming events and things like that. That's usually our fifth topic is, what's going to come up, things that we should be looking out for. So I guess we'll just start it off real quick with the MDL, the number one thing that I love talking about. It's the thing I always like to start with. It's a great way to kick the show off. So as we get closer to the playoff season, that is what I want to mainly talk about is the playoffs coming up. We currently have what I believe to be 4 guaranteed teams. I'm going to let you in a little bit on the history of the MDL. Now, the MDL came into fruition with ESEA starting at season 23. So every season before that, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So 5 seasons was known as Premier. That's why you could probably see it known as Premier, in early iterations, or as it may be still called today. However, when the MDL started, it was in season 23. And since then, we are now in season 28. There has yet to be a single 10-6 team that has been omitted from the playoffs. And in the entirety of Premier, if you even want to include that season 18 through 22 period, there has been a single team who didn't make it into playoffs that was 10-6. A single team. That was in season 20. And it's happened once. Now, that was because there was so many decent teams. So out of 17 teams at the time, that's how many teams were in it. Only 6 got to be in the playoffs. So 6 teams of 17, too many teams were above 11-5, so a 10-6 team couldn't be in it. That has since not been the case. There are very few instances where we've even had 9-7 teams go into the playoffs. Now, why am I telling you this? This all seems like maybe useless information. Well, right now, there are a lot of contenders for the playoffs right now. So what I believe to be guaranteed teams, we have 4. So Vireo Pro is currently 10-3. Their next 3 games are a very big hurdle. They have to play Swole Patrol, who's currently 8-3, Dignitas, who's currently 9-0, and they actually play them after this podcast is done. So after this show is done, I will be watching that game. I hope all of you will be watching that game. It will be a good one. And then they play Monstars, who is also another team that is on the brink of making the playoffs. Gorilla Gang is currently 10-4. They are on a 9-win streak. They have to play Velocity and Dignitas left. Against Velocity, they have a very strong chance of getting that 10th win. Against Dignitas, we haven't seen anybody beat them yet, so it's kind of hard to say whether or not a team is guaranteed to beat them. And they look very strong, and we'll talk about them in just a quick second. Next, 10-5 currently, we have Resolute and Bravado, both of them 10-5, and both of them have to play Swole Patrol last. So they have a little bit of a test to have to prove themselves in terms of getting, the 11-5. But if they finish 10-6, the odds in the seasons beforehand have shown that they have a pretty good chance of getting in no matter what. Now, the reason why it comes into question a 10-6 team not making it into the playoffs, we have 8 playoff spots. We have 5 other teams that are possibly going into playoffs. Now, Alexander, show titties. This is a PG stream. This is a PG stream, okay? And even on PG, we don't do that stuff, okay? we're just going to talk about MDL. But I thank you. I know that they might be okay, but maybe not for the viewers. It's just something you don't want to see. I agree, Griff. Dan's game is correct. So now the teams that are on the brink of making into the playoffs. So I mentioned Dignitas. They're currently 9-0. They have a lot of top 10 matchups. And honestly, I don't think it matters. And when I say top 10, I mean teams that are currently in the top 10 in the league right now. What's going on, Topical? Hey there, man. So there's a lot of top 10 matchups for Dignitas coming into this last stretch. So their 9-0 could be considered impressive if it's against all teams that are in like the bottom 14. So maybe it doesn't matter. Who knows? But the good news for the Dignitas organization, I think just as a whole, Snakes is 16 years old. The main player phenom is 16 years old. He is now allowed to play in the MDL. He's finally hit the age. I don't know why they instituted such a thing. I feel like we'd see a lot of young gods such as himself. But now he's finally 18, so it doesn't matter. Or did I say 18? I meant 16. Jumping the kid up 2 years. He's currently 16 now. Now, the biggest question to me is, where does he now fit into this team? I think we now have to see what happens in these final games. I'm pretty sure the playoff roster lock hasn't happened yet. So we at least get a preview. Do we get to see these final games that they have to play? They still have to play 7 games in the season. So in those 7 games, is it going to be like a little bit of a trial period for some people on that team? Because I feel like because Snakes is so good, it's hard to say it's guaranteed that he will be on the roster. But in my opinion, I think it should happen. The biggest question is whether or not they're going to switch out people or just maybe switch them in every once in a while. So who knows? I would like to see him in the roster. I don't know who they're going to switch for the team. The team is currently Peter, Infinite, Rix, Grim, and Mitch. Maybe because Infinite, Peter, and Rix all got nominated for the All-Star game, maybe Dignitas is like, apparently Grim and Mitch aren't All-Stars, so maybe they'll get rid of one of them. I don't know. Whatever they choose to do is their decision. I just really think that Snakes will fit in wherever you place him. So they have a very tough test ahead of them, but that is all for Dignitas. Next, we got Vision Gaming coming off a big Tokyo in Tulsa 2 victory against Blackout, who's another playoff contender on the brink. Vision is currently 9-3. I can't see why they wouldn't get into the playoffs. They have 4 more games to go, so it's not like, you know, a team that's in that top 10 position is frankly going to be that scared to be in the position that they're in. Their final games are coming up against FYB, Monstars, Swole Patrol, and Chill on Balding. Chill on Balding at this point is a guaranteed victory, considering they're 4-10 in the league. So I'm sorry, Chill on Balding. I think you guys go by X-Force right now. But, you know, whatever. Your ESEA name is Chill on Balding, so that's how I'm going to address you. Their matchups aren't exactly the easiest, but I think a 10-6 is the bare minimum of how Vision Gaming should prepare. Whether or not going on land and then coming back online for the league is going to hurt them, I don't really think it's a factor, but I think it's something that is fair to call into question. So another team that is currently 9-3 as well is the Monstars, a team that Vision Gaming has to go up against, as well as Virio Pro has to go up against. So Monstars are coming off a 4-win streak since they lost to Prospects, which is a huge loss. If they won that game, which I think we can be fair that they should have beat the Prospects, but, you know, what do you do? A 16-14 loss. It's a close game. It's Counter-Strike. That's how it goes. So they have 3 top 10 matchups, and then they finally have a game against Subtle, the dazed Ocean No One Summit lineup, weird mishmash of people. I think it's A2Z. That's the final guy on that team. Realistically, they should win that. Monsters is a good enough team that they can win these top 10 matchups, so it's not that big of a deal. I just think that they also do have a tough road. It's not that Subtle is so terrible that you're guaranteed a win against them. It's just they're not performing the best. So you would think that a team of Monstars caliber would be able to take them on. Now, I bring up caliber. Now, FYB is just a team of nutters. They're currently 9-4 in the league right now. and they have AZO and really old people to play next. Now, if they don't at least get those 2 wins, I kind of question this team. This is a team of all-stars, whether or not all of them were nominated, and I'll talk about everybody that was nominated soon. Whether or not their entire team was nominated, this team is good. They got Hunter, AZK, GMD, Marky, and Swag. It's a pretty good team. So if they can't win those matchups, that's going to be questionable at best. Vanity, I don't know what real means, but I think you just mean real Balty baby. In which case, yes, I am the real Balty baby. I don't know how many other ones you know, but they are frauds if they're coming off playing like they're Balty baby. Okay, let's be real here. And like I mentioned before, Blackout Gaming, they are currently 9-5, so they are on the brink of actually not making it. And this is probably the team that is the closest to being on the out. They're coming off their finals loss at Tokyo and Tulsa to Vision Gaming, but they play 46-2. So I mean, like, they're the closest to not making it in, but they're so close just based on the matchup that it's almost like, how do they not make it? Now, I'll be fair with 46-2. They've won their last couple games, as in they're 3-10 in the season, and their last 3 games they have all won. So, I mean, to be fair, they were against not so great teams, but I think they showed themselves that they aren't the worst team in the league. Does that translate well into going up against a team that's probably going to make it into playoffs? Probably not, but I think it's worth mentioning, and probably a game that you want to look out for, because if they're on that 3-win streak, they might actually start like having a little bit of confidence in themselves and might want to win. And then finally, of the last team that is on the brink of making playoffs, Swole Patrol, only top 6 matchups left. They have a trek ahead of them. Now, the way I have it written in my notes, I think is as eloquent as I can put it. It's either PogChamp or it's Monka S. This is when they prove themselves. Are you a top playoff team? Are you a top 8 team? Do you beat all of the teams that are currently in contention, or do you lose out and go 8-8, 9-7, whatever else? Vanity, all 10-6 teams don't make playoffs. I think if you look at the scope of season 23 and beyond, when MDL came into creation, when it was birthed from the joint collaboration between ESEA and Mountain Dew, I think you will see. I feel like I did my research well enough to say that confidently. But if Vanity, if you want to dispute that, go for it. Tweet at me, write it in the comments, show me some pictures. I am open to being wrong, as I have been many times during my old podcast days. So don't worry, call me out if you want to. But I'm pretty sure my statistics are pretty true. Sorry, what did you say? I will repeat myself and then I will move on. From when the MDL came into fruition in season 23, there has been no team that has been 10-6 that has not made the playoffs. There you go. And then lastly, before we get into the All-Star talk, the Prospects have made a change in their roster. I don't know if it's really worth mentioning, a team that's 3-12 making a roster change, but back in my old podcast days, I did mention these things no matter what, how late in the season. So the Prospects have made a change. It is just Josh RT from the original 5 of Prospects that came into the MDL this season. Josh RT, B-Wills, Real BM, Rugrat, and Strings is now the roster. Last season, Era missed playoffs with 10 wins, or would have missed with 10 wins. But did they have 10 wins? So would have is not an argument that I'm really willing to accept. So, I mean, if they didn't go 10-6, then it's irrelevant. So I'm sorry to rain on your parade, really, Vanity here. But you know what? If you want to prove me wrong again, go for it. But now the All-Star talk. So now in terms of top 10 in votes, these are all in order. The bottom 10 I did not put in order just because I'm lazy. But the top 10 currently is Swag at the top, no surprise. Freakazoid right behind him, also not a surprise. And finally, another not surprise is Tens. These are probably the 3 biggest streamers out of all of these people next to Hazed, who is actually kind of low in terms of the top 10. But if you're in the top 10, I'm pretty sure you do make it to the All-Star game no matter what. So top 10 is top 10. So Swag, Freakazoid, and Tens are your top three. My personal pick, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, and if you don't, please do. It would be very much appreciated. On my Twitter, I did state that I would be voting for One Modem, and I did. I committed to that. So he is currently in fourth. Food is the next one from Resolute Gaming. Sonic, the solo South African who was actually nominated to go into the All-Star game. So he is also in the top 10, which is nice to see. I think finally that they made that advancement into the MDL, into NA, and they're finally doing that. So Alexander, you voted for me. I appreciate that, bro. I really do. So Hazed is in 7th. Peter is in 8th. Ryan is in 9th, and Markey is in 10th. With the bottom 10, there are a few surprising names here, so don't be too shocked. In the bottom 10, in no particular order, is Rix from Dignitas, Odorous, Crashies, John G, Floppy, ZNF, Caboose, Infinite, GMD, and Zelsis. No. My mom, ladies and gentlemen. No, they can definitely see you. I don't know if you guys just saw my mom, but there you go. I told her before this, hey, I'm filming a show. Don't come in here. She did anyway. And she said, I'm going for a drink, so here's my card. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is her credit card. Buy whatever you want. I'm kidding. Buy whatever you want, guys. It's Amazon Prime Day. Anyways, I will reread the bottom 10 because she distracted me. No, don't beat up my mom, please. So Rix, Odorous, Crashies, John G, Floppy, ZNF, Caboose, Infinite, GMD, and Zelsis. A few surprises to me there. Rix, Odorous, I bet a lot of people wouldn't expect Rix to actually be a bit of a surprise. But to me, he is. In his Splice days, back when Splice was actually in the MDL, this guy was lighting it up. Like it was like Splice was in a class of their own. And I feel like, once again, now that they're 9-0, the entire squad of Dignitas is doing so well. Understandably, Mitch was kind of left out. In terms of like RWS, he was the lowest. Like the rest of the team had like 12.5 RWS while he was at like 10.9. So still 10.9 is decent, but it wasn't as high as the rest of his team. So it's understandable that he was left out. But Rix, I'm pretty sure, has the lowest amount of votes out of anybody. So that was kind of a surprise to me, just because he's actually, I don't want to say a household name, but in terms of MDL, he's pretty good. Odorous, easily one of the best oppers that MDL has ever seen. From my own record books that I have compiled through many statistics of the MDL from season 23 when the MDL was created, he is at the top in terms of seasonal op kills and just all-time op kills. So he's pretty good. I'm surprised that he was once again left out. And then I'll mention one more name here for the sake of time, possibly. ZNF, another Vireo Pro player. One model was actually the only one, I'm pretty sure, from Vireo that was put onto this list. And that was a bit of a surprise to me, considering that ZNF is actually playing quite well and almost to the caliber that One Modem is. So the fact that he's not actually getting the amount of votes that I would expect from him, it's a little bit surprising. But I mean, when so many people are voting for Swag and Freakazoid and Tens, it's kind of hard to divvy up the votes effectively, I'd say. It's kind of hard to say. Like, when so many people are just voting for the top two guys like Swag and Freakazoid, it doesn't mean that like people who are possibly more deserving of it will get the votes. Realistically, with the MDL, it is kind of a popularity contest rather than actually just being good in that season. So, you know, to each their own. You guys can vote for whoever you want to vote for. I voted for One Modem. If you want to vote for him, go for it. It's whatever you guys want to do. But that is actually all I have for the MDL for this week. Unfortunately, Darth Mike wasn't here to banter with me and let me in on his brain for this week. So another thing that Darth Mike won't be here for, we are going to talk about Tokyo in Tulsa 2. Actually kind of a neat little event, grassroots event going down in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go, not only because, I'm in Canada, so it would be very costly for me, for one. And I wasn't a caster, so it's not like I was being paid to go down there. But it's actually also an anime convention at the same time. That's why it's Tokyo and Tulsa. So there was the CSGO that would have been fun, and then I'm I'm a weeb to a T, so that would have been mad fun to go to as well. But I mainly just want to talk about the semifinals and the grand finals of this event, just because I wasn't there to see it personally, and HLTV only covered so much of the event. So there's only really so much to see. So in the first best of three in the semifinals I'm going to talk about, it was Blackout versus AZO. So two teams that are actually in the MDL. So it's kind of like more MDL talk. And I brought him up before, and like I said, it was a surprise. Odorous, once again, kind of popped off in the series. Went 43 and 30, had a 1.41 HLTV rating, as well as Connor 93, which makes sense. Connor 93 is an ex-pro player playing for Ghost, so it's no surprise that like that's the kind of caliber player he is. But you continue to see it out of Odorous, where he's actually playing quite well, and even in a LAN environment, he's playing quite well. Now, AZO themselves aren't that crazy of a team, specifically in the MDL, so I don't know how well they do on LAN. At this event, this was kind of expected. It was supposed to be Blackout in the semis, winning in the semis, and then Vision Gaming also being in that same situation. So speaking of Vision Gaming, they went up against Secret Geniuses Club, who is, I'm pretty sure, not any team. I'm pretty sure it was a pub team. I'm familiar with one player on their team named El Jacko. I'm pretty sure he works with ESEA, as well as Brock, who was in the MDL on a very bad team. So they went up against Vision Gaming. Caboose was the pop-off for the team, as well as Floppy. I don't know if this was Floppy's first LAN, but via his Twitter, he seemed very excited to be on LAN for maybe the few times that he's actually there. Obviously a young player. I'm pretty sure he's still in school, should be 12th grade, or at least graduated by now. So another player that was supposed to, really pop off, and luckily he did against Secret Geniuses Club, who I'm pretty sure is just a what do you mean why I gotta do Brock like that, right? I'm sorry, okay? Like, my bad. I support Brock. He was on a bad team in MDL. What do you want me to do? And then in the grand final, it was Vision versus Blackout. The way it was supposed to go, when you looked at the team list, you're just like, okay, this is how it's going to go. And it was incredibly close. The first map, 16-11 on Nuke, went in favor of Vision. The next map on Overpass was 16-14 in favor of Blackout. Now, this was surprising considering Vision was actually kind of taking control of this game. And I was kind of sitting there watching, like, when does Blackout kind of pop off? And it was kind of like in those last couple rounds that they just soared completely. So luckily that happened for them. The only person to actually kind of really pop off for them was Wrath. So unfortunately, we didn't see the Odorous and Connor 93 that we saw against AZO. But we did see the Wrath that we've seen previously, especially in MDL, and when he was playing for Rogue, so another kind of professional level player. So he played quite well for them. But ultimately, it was Vision Gaming coming out on top. And it was incredibly close. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to say whether or not one team is definitely better than the other. One team is 9-3 in MDL, one team is 9-5. So they have the same amount of wins, just different amounts of games played. So that was basically Tokyo and Tulsa 2. I did want to ask Darth Mike, I kind of wanted to do a little impromptu interview with him, just kind of see how the event went, because there's only so much I can do from a spectator standpoint, but from somebody who was actually there, that would have been an awesome perspective to see. So unfortunately, he's not here, but I mean, if he does make it into Twitch chat, that would be awesome, and I'm sure I can backtrack on topics. I'm sure my producer Griff would be okay with it. So that is it for Tokyo and Tulsa 2 recap. So finally, we're up to DreamHack Valencia. Now, I will start with Darf's opinion here, because I know he's not here, so I want to at least speak for him in terms of things he's actually said, so I'm not speaking incorrect. So going into this event, DreamHack Valencia, Darf said that this was kind of G2's make it or break it event, and I wasn't completely on deck. On the show, I was probably just like, that sounds okay. And then after the show, I was just like, but I mean, they're still kind of bad. Like, I get that this might be a make it or break it, but they're not great. Like, Shocks played well individually, but like, that was it. And it's like, that's just kind of how it was supposed to go. In the end, Mixwell's North team did win it, or I guess MSL's team, but Mixwell was standing in. And I kind of figured that, like, that was still the team to watch. Like, it's still North. Without Mertz, it's still North. Like, you could throw in any, like, decent Danish op, and it would still be a decent team. Not to say that Mertz isn't important for the team. I've been supporting Mertz a really long time. I just feel like if even like they threw in Mixwell and he played just fine, like, does it really matter is the question. So he asked the question, or I guess made the statement, this is their make it or break it. I guess when they kind of lost that Luminosity best of 3 to go out of the tournament, maybe that's what he was talking about. But like, until they get rid of Smiths and get someone different, it's a 4v5 every game. I'm still confident in the statement that Smiths isn't that great and probably shouldn't be within the starting 5. It's kind of like the AGM thing, I think. I know it's kind of weird to compare AGM and Smiths. I feel like that is also a different level, but I've been public on this show before about AGM, and I wish him good luck against Dignitas. I know I made that bet about smothering myself in Nutella if he beats them, but in that same thing where it's like, when you go into the server, it's probably not going to go the way you want it to go. So hopefully G2 kind of figures that out. So that I did not share that same opinion as Darf, but I mean, maybe it was a make it or break it and they're going to make changes, which is probably for the best. And Darf posed an actual question this time: who is going to be the best Danish team here? And my response is, there's no surprises. Honestly, like, the Fragsters are decent. They went 2-0 in their group, so good for them. But I mean, all Danish teams made it into the playoffs, and it finished probably how it was supposed to. North came out on top, whoop-de-doo. Heroic actually took a map off the other team that made it to the finals, and then Fragsters got 2-0'd by North, who had Mixwell on them. And Ryan, yes, unfortunately, you did miss the MDL part, but you can watch the VOD, so there's always that. And I did name drop you about the All-Star game, so good job on 9th place in the All-Star votes. Hopefully you get some more, dude. I'm rooting for you, even though I didn't vote for you. But yes, back to the Valencia talk. The event just went as expected. To me, there was no surprises. Big deal. G2 beat Virtus Pro. So did Fragsters. Fragsters 16-1 the guys. Like, Virtus Pro has no chance ever again. This team is done. I feel bad for them when they go into the new Challenger stage in London. It's not going to go well unless they turn into Magic Major VP and they just retain their spot, which is going to be ridiculous. But it's business as usual at this event. It didn't go any way that I wouldn't have expected it to. Luminosity making the finals, whatever, you know, like, with a team that has like Nekaz and Yell, it's kind of surprising, but at least like now they're kind of like on the map a little bit, because before we had Lucas and Henny, the twins that were on the NTC lineup, and was it Games Academy? I think that's what it was called, Games Academy. And then Steel obviously playing at the very high professional level. So is it a surprise that they made it to the finals? Not really. Not really. This event went as it should. So I'm sorry, Mike, that because I'm here alone, you can't defend yourself. But I hope I can confidently say that there's really nothing to defend about what you said. I just think it just happened as it should have. That's it. And then for my second final topic of the day, I'm going to be talking the minors. So I'm going to be talking all of the minor things going on, because at the time of the last show, we didn't actually have our definitive NA guys going to the event. So with NA and the CIS regions closing out before this show, I actually have both regions. So for the Americas, we are not going to see NRG, which was not supposed to happen. It wasn't. It was like, that was not in the plan. When me and Darf were talking, it was literally, okay, NRG and then another one. Like, that's just how it was supposed to go. And we got Complexity and we got Rogue, which I think is fine. I wanted Rogue. Rogue was my second team. I chose NRG and I chose Rogue. And I think that's just me kind of disvaluing Complexity's additions of Stanislaw and Shazam, because clearly those were big additions. Whether or not people believe in Shazam's opping, whether or not people believe in Stanislaw's IGLing, They went in and they won the NA minor. Like, what more do you need me to say? Like, in terms of going to this LAN and then just winning out, that's pretty good for them. So I have to give them all the props in the world that they actually went to that event and won, came out on top, got the 30 Gs, and are now going to the minor. Now, in less surprising fashion, if you actually look at the teams in the CIS minor, it is brutal. And I wanted to pose the question, is talent in the CIS region thinning out? Because if you actually look at the two invited teams that went to the closed qualifier, so it wasn't even the LAN minor that went down in London, the closed qualifier didn't feature Flipside Tactics in terms of like winning the event. Flipside Tactics wasn't even a team that made it out of the closed qualifier. How are they relevant? How are they here anymore? Like, how is this organization still around? Like, I think they're in Rocket League from last I remember. And then what else do these guys do? Like, are they in Dota? Like, what is going on? The two teams to make it out of that event in London were Hellraisers and Team Spirit. If you look at the caliber of the other teams that actually made it out of the closed qualifier, you just go, oh yeah, okay, that guy's kind of good, that guy's good. Oh, but the teams aren't that great. Like, that is what's happening in the CIS. It's thin. There's no players left. So that's unfortunate for them, but what do you do? And I'm probably the biggest surprise out of any of the minors that have happened so far. Talking about the Asia minor. Now, with this, there aren't that many great teams. Like, obviously the Asia talent pool is still very thin. There were two invited teams to this event, Renegades and Tyloo. In my original notes before the Group A happened, I was like, okay, Renegades, Tyloo, that's it. Like, that is all we're going to see at this event. Now, that is what we very well could see in the final two that actually make it to the new challengers stage. But we saw something out of the Japanese for once ever. Scars Absolute, aka SZ Absolute, or SZ Absolute for all my Canadians out there. I am Canadian, I just say Z. A group of 5 named Laz, Crow, Barse, Poem, and Take J. You're probably unfamiliar with these names, probably because you never see Japanese players do anything in Counter-Strike. The most relevant, and it wasn't even a win, the most relevant game that these guys have played was a 16-14 loss to Fnatic at WESG 2017, which was back in March. So they went to WSG, which is nice. They qualified for that. And then they go 0-3 in groups. And their most impressive loss was to Fnatic at 16-14. Now they beat Renegades in a 16-14 game on Dust 2. This is probably the most impressive win and game these guys have ever had in their lives. And I love it. Like I said before when I was talking about Tokyo and Tulsa, I am a huge weeb. Now, to see the Japanese finally making a move on the Counter-Strike scene, I think it is finally time. So they won't have to face Renegades, who also made it out of Group A. So they won't have to face Renegades, at least in the first round of the playoffs. They will either be playing Tyloo, Tainted Minds, Unique Stars, who are Israeli, and then 5 Power, who are a giant mixed team, I'm pretty sure, of countries. 5 Power, yes, they are a bunch of different countries. So, you know, the Japanese are finally making a move. Like, this is time. We need to drop the Counter-Strike equivalent of an atomic bomb to make sure that these guys do not make a move on North America. Little historic joke for you. Okay, let's move on before that continues. I got in trouble for a little bit of nationality talk in 2 shows ago by Darf, so I'm going to try to stray away from that. And then with the EU minor, the final one that is yet to happen. Funnily enough, the EU minor is the last one to happen, and the minors are all happening in London. So a little bit of a random situation going on there. So in Group A, it is the Danish Optic Gaming, the Finnish Ensa Esports, the French Left Out, and the Finnish 3D Max. Or sorry, the French 3D Max. Sorry, I'm thinking old 3D Max. Then we have the Polish team Kingwin, Swedish Ninjas in Pajamas, Swedish Red Reserve, and the German-Danish mix Sprout. This one is actually, obviously with like the Asia minor and the CIS minor, it wasn't that difficult. With the NA minor, it was like, okay, we got NRG, we got Complexity, and we have Rogue. And that's kind of who we have. Obviously, E United was in the talks, but that was just kind of like, we need a team to fill that fourth place. So it's just going to be E United. It's kind of hard to make a prediction with the EU minor because there's so many actually talented teams. I'm expecting, though, that Optic makes it out no matter what. We have Kingwin with Taz, and they're actually playing okay right now. We have NIP, who's looking a little rough, I would say, with Forrest, Get Right Rez, Dennis, and Electro. So with their additions, they're looking a little rough. Red Reserve, Twist, Disco Doppelin, Freddie B, Hampus, and Brolin. This is probably my favorite team at this event, just because Disco Doppelin and Freddie B are probably my favorite duo in Counter-Strike ever. I just love when those two have played together. And Disco Doppelin just, frankly, has the best name. Let me just throw that out there. It's an amazing name. Then with Ensa Esports, Alu, Alexib, Sergey, Ariel, and X7. A lot of people are hyping up Sergey right now. He's super young and super good out of the Finnish scene. So finally, like, Finnish have something to kind of cheer on for the first time in a while, because Alu has always been known as Bot Alu, I guess. Feels bad, man. I don't completely expect that they're going to play that well. Maybe make it into playoffs. I'm not saying like not making out of groups isn't possible for them. They play in a group that has the French 3D Max and then the French Left Out, who are, in my opinion, very beatable teams. On Left Out, it's Scream, Kiyoshima, Haji, XMS, and Sixer. So basically like the envious rejects. They're all very good players still. I just feel like Ensa might actually have the edge over them. And then with 3D Max, it's Lucky, Jinx, David P, Maka, and Jax. Probably a lot of names that you might not be familiar with. David P, I'm most familiar with, and then Lucky's actually playing quite well on this team. So those would be like the two names that I would say to look out for. And that basically wraps up like Group A. Like I think Optic will make it out, and I think Ensa has the best chance to make it out. And then in Group B, it's Team Kingwin, Ninjas in Pajamas, Red Reserve, and Sprout. This is probably the toughest group to actually make any sort of prediction, considering Sprout is actually decent. Their team is Dennis, Speedy, Nato Savix, Cyclone, and Percy. It doesn't sound that good. When actually put into a server, it actually is pretty decent. So I wouldn't count them out. Honestly, I know I said they're my favorite team going into it. I would actually expect that Red Reserve is actually going to finish last in this group, because I really do think that Sprout actually has a chance. I'm honestly hoping that NIP once again doesn't even make it out of this minor and into the new challenger stage, just because I think it would be such a meme for NIP Magic to just completely fall apart once again. And it would make too much sense for them to not make it in. And then a team that I think is almost guaranteed, I really think Kingwin is going to make it out of this no matter what, whether it's in first or second. I do think that they're going to make the playoffs. So out of Group B, I want to say it'd be Kingwin and Sprout. I feel like that's kind of maybe an edgy pick. I feel like if EU people heard me say that, they'd be like, I don't know about that. So my top 4 picks would be Optic, Ensa, Kingwin, and Sprout. Out of those, I'm really kind of hoping that it's Optic and Kingwin, because I finally want a Polish team that isn't Virtus Pro to actually really kind of take off. And that would just kind of be like my hopes and dreams. Like, please put these old guys in their Counter-Strike grave and just kind of bury them a little bit more. And a new Polish team actually got announced today. It's Blast. It really is kind of just like the scraps of Poland put together. So I don't really know how they're going to perform, but I can't imagine that it's going to be anything too crazy. But that basically wraps up the entirety of the minor recap. And now into the final topic, I've got upcoming events. Now, upcoming events isn't too big of a topic for me, because the biggest event that, for Nerd Street and for me would be Fragadelphia 12. It's coming up. I don't know what's going on with the online qualifier. I don't know if my producer can confirm anything for me, because I'm just a little bit in the dark myself. I know that Frag 12 is coming up on August 3rd to August 5th, but I don't know what's going on with the online qualifier. I don't know what's going on with the road to NSGSC. So those are kind of up in the air to me. but I know that they should be happening relatively soon, or at least either on the day that Frag 12 starts or the day before. I'm pretty sure those have when the other, like those specific events have taken place the day before on August, well, what would be August 2nd for this event. So that'll be an awesome event. I'm unfortunately probably not going, which is really bad because I wanted to go now 2 years in a row, but I'm just broke. That's the way it goes. But in terms of events that are guaranteed to happen no matter what, we got E-League coming up, which is a very big event, $1 million on the line. I'm pretty sure me and Darth Mike talked a little bit about it last week, but it's pretty much just every top team, and it actually starts in 5 days on the 21st, which is next, or is actually this coming Saturday. And I'm pretty sure it should be Astralis C9, Liquid, MIBR in the first opening games that we'll be seeing. And then the next day we'll see Navi Fnatic, FaZe and Mouse. So it'll be a pretty darn good event. And then the last event coming up on August 1st, so just before Frag 12 starts, is IEM Shanghai, which is a $250,000 event going on in China, but it's not part of the Grand Slam IEM tournament thing going on. So it's a big event, but it's not big enough that teams should really, really care about it, that like it's gonna go towards the Grand Slam. So that's actually all I got for this week. Unfortunately, Mike could not be here. I was all by my lonesome, but I think I did an okay job of getting the topics out, saying everything that I wanted to say, and not stumbling on my co-host's words. So that is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. Follow Nursery Gamers on Twitter if you aren't already. I would assume that you are if you're on this channel. I think you would be. But if you're not, shame on you, and I think you should right now. But that is all for me. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next week.